Well, we're sitting here with Dr. Dietrich Klinghardt, and I'm Dana Gorman from DefeatAutismYesterday.org, and we are here today because he has graciously granted us some time with us to help us figure this whole autism thing out, what it is, and how we can start healing these kids without feeling so lost about all the different things that are out there. And just really quickly for Dr. Klinghardt, I actually was given your name at the very first conference I went to about 3 months after diagnosis. They said, if you really want to heal your kid, go find Dr. Dietrich Klinghardt in Washington. Like, oh great, yeah, whatever, okay, fine, wrote it down. And why we're sitting here today is because you kept being the end of the yellow brick road. No matter what I researched, if it was mercury, there you were. If it was neurotoxins, there you were. Every brain healing, there you were. So I hunted you down, and here we are.
Okay. So I want to give a little overview of what my thinking is around autism.
Okay.
First of all, my opinion comes from this year. I'm 30 years in medical practice, and I started really from day one dealing very much with neurological disorders, even though I'm not a board-certified neurologist. I have a subspecialty called neurological medicine, orthopedic and neurological medicine.
Is that what your PhD is in? What is your PhD?
No, my PhD is, my thesis was on the autonomic nervous system as it relates to autoimmune disorders.
Which sounds applicable.
And so I had sort of like a little bit of an advantage there because I did my thesis 30 years ago. I've been looking at the issue of autoimmune disorders for 30 years. And in that, of course, I came in contact, with autism very early and other childhood developmental disorders. And so the other avenue where I come from is that I've been looking at the issue of heavy metal toxicity very early on since medical school. And we discovered while I was working on my thesis that autoimmune diseases have one underlying factor that's consistent in all of them, and that is heavy metal toxicity. And so that is confirmed now in studies from Sweden and Czechoslovakia that there's a direct relationship between the heavy metal reactivity that people's immune systems have and autoimmune diseases. So this is sort of like a little bit of my background, just the long time in medicine, the autonomic nervous system, autoimmune disorders, and heavy metals. That's sort of just to get that sort of out of the way.
And don't you consider autism partly an autoimmune disorder, just for these parents right away?
I like to not pin myself down with that yet. So I like to go now and explain what autism is for me.
Okay.
Yeah? So first of all, a little bit on the statistics. We know that 20 years ago that the incidence of autism was approximately 1 in 100,000 children. And the statistics that is quoted over and over now, which is already 3 or 4 years old, was 1 in 166 children is autistic. And then within the statistic, I think it's relevant just to get a few facts on the table, that the relationship from boys to girls is 4-1. The only difference between boys and girls that I can tell is testosterone. And that is the first point that points in a very distinct direction, and that is that we know that testosterone has been identified by Boyd Haley and several other researchers as being a prime synergistic factor of mercury toxicity. That means mercury in the presence of testosterone is 4 to 8 times more toxic than in an atmosphere and an environment where there's no testosterone. So we don't have to look very far. Here's the first pointer that points in that direction from autism. We know from a recent study that was published in a journal, I believe, that's called Place and Health, or Health in Place, that there's a map of the US that shows where high levels of environmental mercury are. You know, where there was the highest incidence of autism, I believe, is in a county called Brewster County. I don't know, it's either
Texas.
yeah, somewhere.
Yeah, Texas.
And this is an area where the largest mercury mine in the country was. And this is where the largest cluster of autistic children is also. And in this latest edition that just came out 2 weeks ago, it shows a map of the US of where levels of environmental mercury toxicity are very high. And this map coincides directly with the map of the incidence of autism. So here's a second pointer that points in the direction that autism may have something to do with mercury. Now, to leap forward, when I look back at my clinical experience, it is very clear that the autistic children, or even autistic grown-ups, which we've encountering more and more, have most dramatically improved when we applied treatment modalities that were aimed, focused, targeted at removing mercury from the central nervous system of these people, which is for me the third pointer that points in the same direction. In recent years, I've been very much involved in investigating the effect of neurotoxins on the body. And it started with looking at where do neurotoxins really come from. And there's only a selected group of sources of that. And before I go there, I want to sort of jump to the conclusion. Yeah? For me, autism is the direct outcome of a neurotoxic insult to the system. Period. And then there are several things that happen from there. So first of all, we have to know that the growing nervous system of a child in utero and in the first few years of life is most vulnerable to incorporating toxic metals and other toxic substances into it. Yeah? A growing nervous system means this is a nervous system where the neurons suck up all the nutrients in the environment to draw into themselves so they can have the kind of growth that they need to have and to grow new dendrites, expand in size and length. You know, as the child is growing in length and size, the nerves have to lengthen by that much. And they can only do that by bringing in a lot of nutrients into themselves. Neurotoxins are called neurotoxins because they have a propensity to be taken up by nerves. Otherwise there would be immunotoxins or gut toxins or heart toxins or liver toxins, but neurotoxins means these are substances that are preferentially taken up by the nerves. And we know that the basic fundamental mechanism is simple. The nerves, the axons of the nerves, have a property that no other cell has in the body, and that property is called curiosity. You know, when anything appears in the periphery of the nerve gobbles it up and sends it via a process called axonal transport up to the nerve cell, who then looks at it, the sort of the brain of the nerve, see what it is, and then brings it back down. And if it doesn't need it, excretes it. Now, the nerve does it with any substance that appears into its periphery. This way it gets the nutrients, it gets the fluids that it needs, but also toxins come through that way. If they're not neurotoxins, but just toxins, ordinary toxins, they go up to the nerve cell, the cell looks at it, doesn't want it, brings it back out. A neurotoxin is a substance that goes up the nerve looks at it, and then fails to excrete it. So it bioaccumulates in the nerve cell. That's what makes a neurotoxin. And there is only 3 or 4 classes of neurotoxins. You know? One are the heavy metals. The second one are the mycotoxins from mold exposures.
Like my son.
Yeah, just like the issue with your son. The third ones are the endo and exotoxins created by pathogenic microbes in us. To define that term a little closer, pathogenic microbes. There's microbes in us that belong there, that are always there, that don't create any harm, that live peacefully with us, and usually work with us. There's some gut microbes that create vitamin K, there's other ones that create vitamin B1, and so forth. They have to, in order to live with us and get fed all the time, they have to do something for us. These are the symbiotic microbes. Then there is a second class of microbes that just simply are there, but they don't do any harm. They eat when we eat, and they create some metabolic waste, but not to a degree that compromises our system. We can afford them. They sort of piggyback on our system, but they're not getting any harm. Pathogenic microbes means they're doing something that harms us. And usually this harm is done through 2 or 3 ways. One, all the bugs that live in us have metabolic waste. That means they poop and they pee. And that metabolic waste may be toxic to us. That's number 1. Number 2, it gets more dark, more sinister. They send out messenger molecules in order to subdue our immune system in a way that favors their survival. These are informational substances such as neuropeptides. And then number 3, they produce exo and endotoxins. That means these are their direct defense mechanisms, their bullets, their weapons they use against a continuous onslaught of our immune system trying to subdue them. So there's 3 distinctly very different mechanisms by which they work. And any one of these 3 can be a neurotoxin. That means can behave in the way that I defined the neurotoxins before, can be taken up by the nerves and travel in the nerves and leave some path of destruction behind. By the way, there's only one neurotoxin that has ever been shown to destroy the core of a nerve, which is called the tubulin molecule. That is the central sort of guide wires that are inside the nerve along which all the nutrients are transported and along which the neurotransmitters are transported. The only substance that ever has been shown to destroy that mechanism is mercury. So this is the 4th time in our short discussion that mercury comes up as a key issue. And so we have the heavy metals as neurotoxins. We have the mycotoxins. This is really mycotoxins should be really under the category where I said pathogenic microbes, but for some reason in medicine the molds and fungi are always sort of given their own category. So the molds and fungi do the same thing. They produce waste, they produce exo and endotoxins, which are called mycotoxins, from fungus, mycotoxins. They have given their own sort of class and description, but they also send out messenger molecules to subdue our immune system. But then the bacteria and viruses all have their own way of doing this. Viruses don't have life of their own, but they can cause the body to produce its own neurotoxins. Viruses attach to our own DNA, and in their position they can trigger the molecular machinery to make, so the cell starts making toxins that are toxic to itself. Again, with the intent, with the evil intent to subdue the host so the virus can replicate and sustain its strange life form, which is just a piece of dead information that's been replicated. A virus doesn't have its own life, it doesn't have a heart that beats, it doesn't have a brain that thinks, it's just a piece of dead information.